Otra vez. Come here. Let me tell you something. I remember Tampa, the way she used to be, the places we would run to, the faces we would see. Yes, I remember Tampa, those precious memories. A city rising on the move, a simple yet progressive groove. I remember Tampa, and she remembers me. Yeah. She remembers me.
Welcome to the Tampa Native Show. Stay tuned now for the fastest 60 minutes in cable broadcast history. Live from the studios at TBCN, the home of the Tampa Native Show. Join your hosts, Mario Nunez, the 15-Minute Girl, and Steve Canella, as they celebrate growing up in Tampa. From Shock Armstrong to Shakey's Pizza, from Braddock Street to Buffalo Avenue. Get ready to call in and tell us your stories, because sharing your memories has never been this much fun. And now, Mario Nunez, the 15-Minute Girl, and Steve Canella.
She remembers me.
Hi, Tampa Native Show fans. Welcome back. You know, it's Thursday night. It's 7 o'clock. It's got to be the Tampa Native Show. I'd like to introduce myself to those of you just joining us for the first time and ask you one question, and one important question. Hey, man, where you been? My name is Mario Nunez, and I'm seated alongside my broadcast partner,
Sally Nunez.
And to her left,
Steve Canella.
This is the 15-Minute Girl, and that's Tampa Steve. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Mr. Joe Howden, this is his third time, rapidly becoming one of those return guests that you're going to get more and more used to, because, to be honest with you, he's got some amazing story. And not just the stories themselves, but his storytelling abilities. So, we'll welcome Joe in just a few minutes, but at the top, we want to do as we always do, welcome our fans back, welcome our sponsors, and thank our sponsors. Stevie, our sponsors, huh?
Well, without our fans and sponsors, we wouldn't be here right now talking about this.
That's right. We mention that every week, and we mean it from the bottom of our hearts. We'd like to remind everybody of our website address, darling. Give that website address.
Show at tampanatives.com.
Our website address, once again, is
Show at
our website address.
Tampanativeshow.com.
I love this woman. Tampanativeshow.com is our website address. We encourage you to go to our website and click on that sponsor tab. So that way you get a good idea of who our sponsors are. And more importantly, why don't you go over there, get in your car, drive over there, and visit our sponsors. And tell them the Tampa Native Show sent you. Listen, we want to mention at the top of our show as well that tonight's format is going to be just a little bit different, because as you've probably already noticed, we don't have our phone on the table with us. That's okay. Never fear. We've got a backup plan for you. And here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to ask that you call in tonight just like you always do. Got a little feedback in my earpiece. Call in as you always do. Hello Dory is right there by the telephone. She's going to be taking your phone calls, and she's going to be taking your Bolita numbers tonight. So don't think that we're not going to be giving away our gifts tonight like we always do. We absolutely will. Tonight's winner will win one of our brand new sponsored t-shirts. But we're going to do it a little bit differently. She's going to take your Bolita numbers exclusively. Now, you see there Steve. Steve's got his laptop in front of him.
I'm ready.
And you might be asking why he has his laptop. Well, here's the reason he's got his laptop. He's got his laptop because if you've got a question for Joe, send it to our brand new email address. Wait a minute, Steve, don't mess this up now. Don't mess this up. All right, here we go. Stevie, give him that new email address.
That new email address is goodtimes@tampanativeshow.com.
One more time.
goodtimes@tampanativeshow.com. And Mario, why is it labeled Good Times?
Because we're moving on up.
That's
just
right.
like George and Wheezy. We're moving on up. So it's goodtimes@tampanativeshow.com. You see where that tampanativeshow.com is kind of consistent now? It's not as confusing, because as the 15-Minute Girl told you earlier, she had it in her mind. I'm going to say it once, but don't let it confuse you.
That was confusing.
Show@tampanatives.com. Yes. You see how it's a little bit confusing? So in keeping things all even, Steve, and nice and easy, Stevie, one more time.
goodtimes@tampanativeshow.com.
All right, now, let me explain to you why we did that.
Right.
Here it is. in a nutshell. Because here at the Tampa Native Show, we keep things fresh, we keep things fluid, and we keep things funky. You see what I mean? And then just James Brown appears out of nowhere,
That
just
was a little
like that.
fun, too. Yeah.
We make things
An
funky here.
homage
So,
to James.
ready to call in, and you can call in anytime. You can call in right now. Get your bulletin numbers in. Stevie, give them that number.
That number is...
It's on the wall there,
I know,
Steve. It's on the wall.
977.
You can't mess it up.
There's so many numbers to remember.
That's true.
977-6800. That's 977-6800. Give us a call and talk to Hello Door.
And if you're calling from out of the area, you might not know the area code.
813. You know,
977.
how about those days when we didn't have to give an area code, remember? Back in the day?
Well, we've got photographs, and the earliest of days when there was like, Manhattan 164. It was bizarre the way the numbers started out. But we actually didn't even have exchanges. And we may even do a show down the road
Just on that.
because most of us remember our phone numbers as little kids. And they've all changed now. There was 876, there was 877, there was
839.
839.
223.
There you go.
221.
Well, we're getting a little bit off topic, and we don't want to take any
No.
time away from our esteemed guest who's going to be here in just a few minutes. So let me go ahead and offer this up as well. We'll call up for our graphics. Is it 0B? We want to remind everybody, 0B is the graphic. We want to remind everybody that the New Year's Eve party is underway. Where tickets are being sold currently as we speak. There's a wonderful new graphic created by our technical director,
Eric Cups.
Mr. Eric Cups. Want to remind everybody, only $99. It's jammed, packed, full of value. All the information is right there on that flyer, and all the information is also available on our Facebook page.
And the website, too.
And the website as well, TampaNativeShow.com. So join us. We'd love to have you join us. There's going to be dancing. There's going to be partying like nobody's business. Please make your plans to be there with us as soon as possible. Party like a rock star, as we like to
Open
say
bar,
on the
free
Tampa
parking.
Native Show. Well, I want to say thank you, and for a wonderful season. Our Tampa Bay Rays, they took it on the
Yes.
chin.
Unfortunately.
Those dastardly Boston Red Sox, they probably got lucky
Yeah.
in Game 3 of the series and tied it up in the bottom of the ninth inning there, or I should say, won the ball game with a walk-off home run, Jose Lobaton. But you can go ahead and turn that off, Dory, if you want to, because it's just it's an amazing feat. We're just having a little technical issues here on inside our studio. But great season to our Rays. We love your Rays. We'll look forward to spring training next year. Bigger and better things are coming around the corner for our Tampa Bay Rays, and we hope we can keep all of our players, most notably David Price.
Yes.
David Price,
We're hoping.
our Cy Young Award-winning pitcher. Okay, 3 things real quick. USF game, 15-minute girl and I were at the USF game on Saturday. We brought them good luck. Amazing, good
They
luck.
won,
USF won their
actually.
first game against a very tough Cincinnati team, by the way. Also, on Tuesday in the afternoon, over at the local Publix in our neighborhood, guess what? I found 15-minute girl goes, hey, look, somebody left their wallet. Somebody left something in that shopping cart. I walk over to the shopping cart. Sure enough, there's a wallet there and a bank kind of envelope. I took it. I said, you know what, man? I'm going to drop this off because I don't have time to be messing around. I walked it into the manager, and I told him, Mr. Manager, I found this in the parking lot. I know there's at least $600 in this envelope. I don't know what's in this little wallet, but here, I got to go. So make sure that this gets put in the safe for safekeeping. I dropped one of my cards in there just in case they might want to call me up when they said, hey, thanks so much for turning in this $700 worth of cash that you could have walked off with. But I didn't want that karma on me. I didn't want that on me at all. We'll talk a little bit about karma when Joe gets here in a minute. Plus, I wanted to pay it forward. I thought that would help our raise that night. Well, you can see how that all turned out.
Not too good.
And the person that came to reclaim their money, they never called me either. So you can see how that turned out. All right, that's my public service announcement. One more, and we'll get to Joe. This afternoon, the 15-minute girl and I were preparing for the show. We're having our pregame meal as we always do. We're watching Dr. Oz, because what else are you going to do at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? And we're getting our update, our health update. We're eating our pizza, our organic
Oh,
pizza,
you're not
which is
going
wonderfully
there.
delicious. And he's calling up 3 members of the audience, and he's asking them a question. To pick or not to pick? Well, one of them picked graphic number 3, and the graphic number 3, they spun it around, and it turned around, and it was a mole, and there was a hair growing out of the mole, and the question was to pick that hair out, or to cut it off, or to leave it alone.
Is it safe?
Is it safe?
Yes.
Everybody said pick, and the correct answer was yes, pick. Who knew? Because there was always that wives' tale about, you pull it, it could change the mole, something
Right.
serious happened. The next graphic spun around, it was sunburn, and that skin was hanging off
Peeling
the
skin.
sunburn. To pick that skin or not to pick? What do you think?
I think it's okay.
Actually, it's not okay. You're not supposed to pick at sunburned skin that's peeling because you could damage the new skin that's growing in around it. And the third one, of course, Stevie, what was the third one? I'll tell you because you weren't
I don't know.
watching.
What would you pick?
Your nose. The nose. A nose. Is it okay to pick or not to pick your nose? Stevie, what do you think?
I say no.
Well, the answer is yes, it's okay, but there's a technique you're supposed to use. So let me remind you that we are eating our organic pizza at the time that we're going through this.
Good timing.
So he has a tissue, he offers a tissue to his guest, and he says, I'm going to show you the proper technique to pick. So he shows how to pick, and they pick their nose on live TV, whatever. And then he goes here, and he says, and there's a survey that's been performed, and you know what? It's okay to eat your boogers. And I'm thinking,
It's
you
good
know what?
for your immune system.
He actually told his audience that the
That's
survey
bad.
said that it's okay because it actually
Yeah.
boosts your immune system. So I just want to say before we
So
get to
if
Joe,
you're hungry.
I digress. All these years, I thought that Mongo sitting in the corner picking his nose and eating his mocos that I was making fun of, man, he had to drop on
was
all
making
of
fun of
us,
you.
man, because he's probably got the best immune system in the city. All right.
That's why I don't have TV.
Okay, moving along.
All right. Now, we're going to go to a little video right now. You all are sick, I know, right now.
Yeah,
You're going,
no,
why is
that's
he
so
talking
good.
about
I am
mocos and
too.
picking your nose? So we're going to go to this video right now. You know, Bill Logan from ABC Action News followed Joe Howden and the 15-Minute Girl Night 2 weeks ago, 2 Sundays ago. Took about 3 hours worth of film footage, narrowed it down to about 2.5 minutes. A wonderful little
Montage.
report on the official ghost tours of Ybor City. We want to show that to you now. When we come back on the backside of this, Joe will be sitting here with us. Enjoy.
Surrey, it is that time of year, well into October now, and of course we all know that means it is time for the season of ghosts and goblins and all things spooky. Now, of course, we've gone zombie over at Busch Gardens, and we've seen all the haunted houses getting their gear in order, but what about all those places that are spooky all the time? As the sun sets along 7th Avenue, Ybor City's dark side starts to shine,
Fill in, please, so you're inside.
and Joe Howden couldn't be happier.
I live here in Ybor City. I live in a 110-year-old cigar maker's casita. That's a little house about a block away.
Joe, here in the top hat and vest, is the man behind what has to be one of the coolest walking tours in town,
Who's there? Hello?
showing off the ghosts of Ybor City and telling their stories.
Well, it's a lot of fun. First of all, it's a way of getting history into the minds of those. Sort of helps the sugar helps the medicine go down. They get to learn a lot about history. They have fun, and we investigate the paranormal. So you know, it's a lot of fun.
Especially so on the nights when Ybor is slow, like this recent Sunday session, well attended by folks interested in history, as well as Joe's stories.
I want you to know that this building was investigated by ghost hunters in 2009 in an episode called Club Dread. It is a very, very haunted site. People really enjoy it. The tour is highly rated, and I just love doing it. I love being with people and sort of exposing them to this. I like to see the reactions on their faces as they have fun.
And it's having this.
That's not uncommon.
Fun that includes everything from a visit to the old morgue in the basement, yes, basement of the Don Vicente Inn, with spirit sensors in hand, to sneaking into the dark Cuban Club and investigating the countless souls who would rather stay here than move on to eternity.
I've lived in Ybor City for 21 years. I've become a historian in Ybor City, and in the process, because I'm also a paranormal guy, I also was, as I was collecting the history of Ybor City, I was sort of collecting the ghost stories of Ybor City.
This is your time of year.
This is it, yeah. We have a lot of fun now.
And Joe has really put together a cool tour. There's his information right there on the screen. Joe Howden at YborGhostTour.com to get in touch. He does get very booked this time of year, as you might guess.
A lot of locals, probably a lot of out-of-towners, too, want to kind of see what Ybor's all
and
about.
There is one specific room there at that hotel that we went down into the basement where they used to have the morgue. Room 305. There was a couple staying in there. That's supposed to be extraordinarily haunted. And so that room stays very booked. And a lot of really cool stories in Ybor.
Yeah, we should all do that. Just get down there just to learn them, especially if you live here.
Absolutely. We're certainly in the Halloween spirit, too, this morning. A little later this morning, we're live from another Halloween event. How you can win free tickets to Zubu. We're coming back in 3 minutes.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And before we bring Joe in on the conversation, I'd just like to say a great big thank you to the producers and the staff over there at ABC Action News for being generous with that clip, allowing us to show it here. And thanks to Bill Logan again for spending 3 hours with us on a Sunday evening, walking the streets of Ybor. It was nice to meet you, Bill. And thanks again for doing such a wonderful piece on our dear friend Joe Howden. Here he is. Hey, Joe.
Welcome.
Welcome back, my brother.
I always love being here with my Tampa native darlings.
There you go.
My little Tampa natives. It's so much fun. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Joe. We had a great time that night. We'll
did.
talk a little bit more about something that Joe and I have been kicking around, an opportunity for us to do a tour exclusively for the Tampa natives. That's a little spoiler alert. We'll talk about that before the end of the show, and we'll tell you how to join us for that upcoming event. But, you know, we need to talk first and foremost about paranormal, supernatural, and all things having to do with what we used to be referred to as the occult, the dark side, if you want to look at it that way. I've been a big fan myself since I was about 8, 9, 10 years old. I can tell you with certitude that my grandmother and my mother, when they were in New York as little girls, as young ladies and little girls, my mother used to attend seances, Joe, and those types of extra natural and supernatural and spiritual events. That's always been in the conversation around the dinner table with us. Joe, you took us to a whole new level the night that we were with you. When you gave us the E-meters inside of the Cuban Club, that was an experience I'll never forget. Let's take us through, if you will, that night. We've got pictures to also show.
Yeah, well, you know, before we do, let me just say something. Let me talk a little bit about the paranormal.
Please.
That's how you started.
Please.
You know, the paranormal, there's a lot of things I want to get out of the way just real quick. And one is that sensation that you have as a child when you're riding a bike. And today when I ride a bike, I feel like I'm 10 years old again. Magical mystery in the lives of all of us is an important thing. And I think if you're not nurturing your inner child, well, then you're missing something, frankly. Although some people, maybe they think they're having more fun without their inner child. But at any rate, I think that the mysteries of the universe are very important. If you think we know it all, you're sadly mistaken. And so consequently, that's something I think needs to be considered. Another thing is that, you know, one of the important things in the history of mankind is the development of the lens. The lens allowed, which is, by the way, goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks, but it gets refined very well around the Renaissance, and the lens allows for astronomers to look out in space and for biologists to look down into the micro world. And lo and behold, what did they discover? There's bugs and microbes and bacteria all around us, and they've been with us since the beginning. Now, the fact that we couldn't see them doesn't mean they weren't there.
Right.
And so this is what I believe is happening currently. I believe that science is not quite caught up with this realm that we call extra-dimensional, other-dimensional, spiritual, paranormal. Paranormal, by the way, is a word that was developed in universities, not by flaky ghost hunters. So it's a fascinating thing. And one more thing I want to touch on, and I touch on this on the tour a little bit, is that beginning at the turn of the century with, and just after with Albert Einstein, physicists began to say, you know, the world isn't quite what we think it is. The world is really, this is really energy. Now, if I hit you in the head with this cup, it'll hurt. But actually what physics tells us is that this matter is energy moving at a certain rate of speed that allows it to become something we call matter. In other words, everything around us is matter. And now quantum physicists say there are 11 dimensions of existence. Some say that there is an infinite number of dimensions. What goes on in those dimensions? We're in one, but why are the rest there? And so this is why I think the world is really an energy world, and in a way, this is all an illusion. And so I believe that what we really are is energy sewn together by consciousness. We enter our bodies when we get here, and then we leave again and go somewhere else. And this does not conflict with any religion. All religions believe this, whether it's the soul or whatever the energy may be. Native Americans, the people I came from, Druids, they believe the same thing. And so consequently, this is not in conflict. I believe that what ghosts might be are those beings that haven't quite been able to let go. They call this attachment in the world of paranormal research, and we've all been attached to something, and you've seen attachment in, all around you. people in bad jobs and bad marriages and bad situations, they could get out, but they choose not to because they can't seem to work through it. And I believe this is what these beings are. Now, I had to get all of that out of the way before we start talking about Ybor City and the color of Ybor City and the history and what the ghost tour is about. I do tell people on the beginning of the tour, this is not my job tonight to convince you of anything. If you don't believe in ghosts, you think that it's all hogwash, you're going to get a nice little history tour because I have to sort of acquaint you with a lot of history for these ghost stories to make sense.
Correct.
But Ybor City is a rich place for its ghost stories, and it's interesting that it's not been heralded as such for very long, and I think it's because, frankly, the various groups that came to Ybor City sort of thought that ghosts were kind of not good, you know, icky. You may not come into my little shop.
Get out.
Yeah, you may not come in my shop if it's haunted. And so consequently, it's been sort of poo-pooed a little bit and put to the back burner. When I came to Ybor City, very often, I bought my house 21 years ago, I would just walk around 7th Avenue on a Saturday. I'd walk into somebody's shop and I would say, "Hi, I'm Joe, I moved in the neighborhood, I'm your neighbor." And before very long went on, I would say, "By the way, does anything weird ever happen in your store?" Usually the wife would say, "Oh yeah, we have a guy that," and then the husband would say, "Don't talk about that." And because they were afraid, or they thought that they would be dismissed as crazy. So these stories that have sort of begun to, they have been really flowing underground for a long time. What I've done on the tour is sort of selected what I would consider sort of the creme de la creme of the ghost stories. And they're pretty interesting.
They were very interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'm not sure that I'm ready to move on because I like this part of the conversation as well. And of course, we're going to be taking the tour again. And to use some of the vernacular that Joe is introducing us to tonight on the show, I have a certain attachment to what you're saying. So if you want to continue on and give us some more background, that's fine. The other thing is, and I digress for just a moment, now do you see what a leap of faith the show has taken in the first 20 minutes? 10 minutes ago I was talking about eating your boogers, and now Joe's talking about
Please
10
don't
dimensions
say that again.
and where we're... Okay, but I just want you all to understand that even though this may sound frivolous and may sound, to use Joe's phrasing, dismissive in a lot of ways, these are things that actually are taking place around us. And you can either choose to accept or deny. But either way, you're right. Because if that's your belief system, that you don't choose to accept that there are entities, apparitions, poltergeists that are in this realm with us, well, then that's okay. You can continue to plod through life just like that. But then there are those people that have those extrasensory perceptions that they're born with. It's an innate skill that just, you can develop it, those that have it, and those are the people that can communicate. And what are they communicating with? You know, this is something that is, to me, infinitesimally fascinating. And Joe, when he takes you on this tour, and he walks you down 8th Avenue and he stops in front of Reyes Clinic, well, actually, he starts first in the vestibule next door because we gather at King Corona. Tell us what you told us there about the experience you had at King Corona, which I thought was fascinating. And oh, by the way, you know, when they talk about having that little experience with the goosebumps, I don't think it's because it's that cool inside the studio here, because it's not. We've got studio lights, but Joe, you can see that.
Let me just address, before I get to that story real quick, let me address this, that the ghost tours are very popular around the country. In fact, there may be too many ghost shows on TV, and we may be oversaturated at this point. But the ghost tours are very popular, and I believe that this is because, in part, they're usually adults. My tours are very adult-oriented. Children can come along and have a great time. I ensure that for them, but adults like this. And I think that behind all of this, I don't think adults are coming out for ghost tours to have somebody go boo and scare them. I think that there's an interest and intrigue in what this infers, and what it really infers, frankly, is that something happens after death.
Thank you.
And I think that a lot of people have questions about what might happen after death. They lean on their religion for that, but not everyone is religious.
Right.
And so consequently, a lot of people are interested. Often on the tours, very often on the tours, as the tour begins to kind of evolve, particularly when we get into the Don Vicente, and people have had a chance to sit and relax, they will start to walk up to me and share stories. Well, this happened to me as a child. This happened to me. This happened when I was with a friend. I recently had a young girl on a tour who told me that she grew up in a 400-year-old house in South Carolina that had been a plantation. And she and her cousins would sit up on the balcony at night behind the building and watch the slaves working through their slave quarters at night. They could see them physically moving through the area. Yeah, and she was certainly dead serious about it, and I presume that it happened for her. I always find it amazing, by the way, that only when a person sees a ghost or possibly a UFO, they're hallucinating. Now you're hallucinating.
Right.
You don't hallucinate at any other time in your life.
Right.
The mechanism that causes a hallucination is pretty severe in most people.
I would think so.
It's called mental disorder or pathology. And yet people say, oh, he must have been hallucinating. No, I don't know what happened to him that night. But yeah, they share these stories. Now at King Corona, one of the reasons I like to meet there, for many reasons, I'm connected to that place in a lot of ways, but I helped Don Barco, who is the owner, who's been on your show.
Wonderful.
Wonderful guy, great friend.
Yes. Great friend to Ybor City.
Marvelous human being.
Yes, yes, he qualifies.
You go,
There's
Don.
for Don
There you
Barco.
go, Don.
We love Don.
Yes,
we love Don. And he and I sort of brought him to the space early on and made him aware of it. He was looking for a place on 7th Avenue. That sort of evolved into a deal where I happened to be working for a firm that closed down right at that moment as an artist, a designer. And so he asked me to help design his shop. And it took us 4 months to remake King Corona. And in that process, basically what I did was I slept and worked and slept and worked, and this is all I did. The first week in the space, which by the way is the old Raw Vega clothing store.
Raw Vega.
Many
Right, the
local Tampa folks know of Raw Vega.
Across the street from Max Argentara.
Absolutely. Raw Vega ran his dress shop and clothing store there for 60 years.
Very popular.
And then when he retired, he leased it to a family, Lanica, who ran a clothing store there for another 20 years. So 80 years of the life of that space. It was a clothing store, sat empty for 2 years. 14 years ago, almost 15 years ago, Don decided to lease a space, and I began my project. I was working in the space for a week, late at night, about 1:30 in the morning. I was in the space, and I got that sensation that somebody was staring at me. You've had that feeling.
Of course.
That eyes are on you.
Of course.
And so I looked to the end of the room, and down the hallway was a man standing, over 6 feet tall, thin, long sleeve shirt, slacks. I could see him. He was there was a backlight, so his front was in shadow, but I could see him well enough to see that he had a goatee, but it was a very large goatee. I asked him, "Who are you?" He didn't respond, and now I felt like maybe some mayhem might come to me.
Yeah.
I looked down at the work table I was working at, for something to protect myself. There was a hammer there. I grabbed the hammer, and when I looked back, he was gone. And I began to search the building. That's the remarkable part of the story, that I had
You
the
went
courage.
towards it.
Yeah, I went towards it instead of leaving.
I don't think I would have done that.
I was supposed to be in this space by myself, and so consequently, I went down the hallway calling out, who's there. When I got to the end of the hallway, I could see that the back door had a padlock on it. Now I realize there's another doorway in which he might be circling behind me, and I actually then became scared because I didn't know where he might be. Yeah. So I remember running out of the building so quickly. As I locked the front door, I still had the hammer in my hand. I realized that probably now it's 2 in the morning, 2:30. If I call the police, it's going to be very late before I go to bed. There's nothing in the store to steal. He got in somehow, he can get out, and frankly, I went home. I went to bed. I got up in the morning, I called Don, and I said, Don, there was a dude in the store with me last night.
Somebody was in there with me.
Somebody was in there with me, absolutely. And so he said, that's not possible. He said, I changed the locks this week. He says, no one has a key to the building but me. I said, well, there's a trap door you don't know about. And that's interesting. Not I was even thinking about a ghost. I just thought it was a person because he was that real in appearance. And so Don came down half an hour later. We searched the space from top to bottom, and there was no one present. And Once I realized this, there was no way in, no way out. The glass had not been broken to the door. No one had a key. I said, well, Don, you've got a ghost. And I started doing my research, and I realized some years later that the man I saw was Raul Vega.
In fact,
as a young man, right. Once King Corona opened, the staff began to see a series of different characters, entities. Mr. Vega, an older, shorter man, a teenage girl. There was a story of a girl, a psychic came to King Corona and did a reading for Don. She was with Dave Latham, who's written the book Ghost Hunting Florida, and he dedicated an entire chapter to King Corona, by the way, that building. And there was apparently a young woman, maybe a teenage girl, who died in the building. We think from a fire or possibly something else, we don't know. But she's been seen, and so it's a very haunted space, and that's part of the reason we like to meet there.
When we come
and
back,
by the way, I will say to your audience,
yes, sir.
If you think I'm a crazy guy, then you can think that.
He's not.
This man that I saw that night was as real as any person I've ever seen, and he was not alive.
Real enough to make you grasp that hammer, to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't like you saw a half person or you saw a faceless person, you saw a person standing
Absolutely.
there. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to show you a video that we show each and every week. It's a sort of a montage, a thank you, if you will, to our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to engage Joe to talk a little bit about two of the more interesting, captivating stories in Ybor City. That's the General Avellanal,
yes.
As well as Dr. Treyes from the Treyes Clínica. And we'll talk about that as soon as we come back on the other side of this. Stay tuned. I'd like to say thank you, one and all, to our fans, our sponsors, for your contributions and your donations. Without your generosity, this show would not be possible. There are our sponsor logos right there on the screen. We'd like to encourage you to visit our sponsors on our website. Click that sponsor tab. Get over there and visit our sponsors. Better than that, get in your car and drive over and see our sponsors and tell them the Tampa Native Show sent you. There's no better time to be a fan or a sponsor of the Tampa Native Show. Visit our website and get in touch with us real soon. We'd love to hear from you. www.tampanativeshow.com. Can't wait to see you soon. Salud and happy days. That's a good-looking guy with a good-looking hat there. I don't know. I should have worn it tonight.
Who's that guy?
Listen, we want to remind you guys, our phone number is 813-977-6800. If you want to get into the Bolita drawing tonight, call Dory. I'm looking at her through the big window, and she's not doing anything but checking her voicemail and her email. So 813-977-6800. Call her, because you're sending your numbers into Steve, and Steve's telling me, Mario, they're sending me numbers. Steve's only there for your questions.
And
okay?
You know what? We have our
different tonight.
Our fans are amazing. They're looking out for us all the time.
Tell me.
Jim Carney, he said, I'm just checking out your new email address, goodtimes@tampanativeshow.com. So how about that?
No, they're watching.
And it's
They're
working.
watching.
It's working fine. Thank
But
you,
put
Jim.
Dory to work, because she needs something to do. We brought her in tonight, and we can't have her just checking her phone all night long. Now, I was mentioning on the break, while we were away real quick, just mentioning that, the attachment portion of this is typically 80%, sometimes a negative attachment. Joe had mentioned it: bad marriage, bad relationship, bad job. Well, if you, for instance, that plantation in the Old South, where, of course, there was slavery, you can only imagine the horrors that took place around all of that. So, that's where a lot of this attachment is. But not all apparitions, not all attachment is negative. There is some good attachment as well. And Joe's going to kind of expound on that a little bit now as we take to the road. We've left King Corona now. We're going to go around the corner to 8th Avenue, and we're going to stop in front of La Clínica Treyes, where when we were there 2 Sundays ago, something amazing happened.
Absolutely.
And there come the chill bumps again. Joe, tell us about that.
Well, first of all, attachment. This concept of attachment is an interesting concept. It makes sense to me. If the universe is really an energistic creation, and everything is really energy, and we are really energy sewn together by consciousness, this is pretty meaningful. By the way, there are studies now that are happening right now for those people out there who think, well, when the organic brain dies, you're dead. Well, the truth is that they are now beginning to document a lot of interesting information that shows that consciousness may not be stored in our brains. In fact, it might be stored in some kind of quantum field that we are all sort of hooked into. In other words, it's kind of like the cloud.
Wow.
And
That's
that's
interesting.
one thing. It also supports the idea that as you think you are. Everything that's ever happened in the world that was not provided by nature, this cup, this pen, it started what first? An idea. In other words, only the thought makes things happen.
Correct.
Now, the thought goes through our hands and we do things, but the point is, energy is everything. And so it makes sense to me then also that possibly things like love and hate, attachment, these are forces as strong as lightning and wind. These are
Absolutely.
powerful forces. And so attachment, I think, is very strong. One of the reasons that paranormal investigators love to go into abandoned or go into graveyards, abandoned orphanages, abandoned mental institutions,
Hospitals.
prisons, hospitals, is because there was a lot of suffering there.
Right.
And the theory is that many of these beings, they suffered there so long they can't let go of their suffering. I must stay here to continue this connection of suffering. There are people in the world that pain is the thing that drives them through their lives. And it's yeah, and so consequently it happens. But there is also positive attachment. We'll talk about that when we get further on down, but I think you want to talk about Treyas a little
I want to talk about Treyas. I want to draw everybody's attention to that clock on the wall over there that's mocking us already. So,
Yeah,
Joe,
that's
if
how
you
it
want to give us
goes.
the Cliff's Notes, feel free to
Well,
do
I'm not gonna do the story, of course, because
that's why we're going to
Because
have
you
the
want people
event.
to take
then
the
you don't need to
tour.
come on my
Right,
tour.
that's why
Right.
we're not here necessarily.
And
But I
you
will
want
say
to
that
take
way.
that tour,
I will
believe
say
me.
this,
Please.
One of the things that happens on the tour is that when Ghost Hunters, the TV show, and by the way, I'm very realistic about TV shows. I know that they're there for
Entertainment.
some hoopla TV. You know? I'm not really a big fan of TV ghost shows, frankly. But Ghost Hunters comes to Ybor City in 2009, and they investigate the Treyas Clinic and also the Ciclo Cubano.
Ciclo Cubano.
Thank you. And so, why? Because these two sites are renowned for being haunted, as well as several others. The Treyas Clinic is very, very interesting. Of course, there's a marvelous story there about Jorge Treyas and Conchita, and how they came together and their parting and what happened eventually. This is a very colorful part of Ybor City, a very colorful time. And you know, this ghost tour has to touch a lot on things like gangsters and mobsters, doctors, prostitutes. It is the rich,
Gambling houses and
gambling
opium dens.
houses. It is a rich part of Ybor City, and so with Treyas, it's a very interesting story. It's a powerful story about attachment. There are those, of course, who have seen and believe that Conchita Treyas has returned to the clinic and is there today. But we will mention that on that tour,
Yes.
as I invoke
The lights lit up.
as I invoke the name of Jorge Treyas, the street light next to us flashed.
Oh, wow.
It went off and
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely.
hair
That street
stand
light
up on
that
your
you see
arm.
there.
This one here?
Yeah.
That street light that you see
Yeah.
there, and I can attest to it because I was
We were right
standing.
under it.
I was standing directly under it, and I was the first one that reacted to it.
Yeah.
And Joe, in mid-sentence, stopped, looked up with reverence, and kind of looked back down again, dropped his eyes, and as he did, he said, and I shouted out to him, so you're going to mention Dr. Treyas? And then he said, it happens every time.
Yes.
So it's not as though that Joe wasn't flabbergasted by it. It was, welcome back, friend, because, and I can tell you with certitude, they're standing straight up on end. It was amazing. It was unsolicited. Joe mentioned Dr. Treyas and his philandering ways and the life that he led.
And he got angry.
And the light flickered. And it didn't flicker again. So,
And by the way, it doesn't flicker every time. But what's interesting is for the skeptic out there who would say, "Oh, come on, really?" But I never see that light flicker. I have now become focused on that particular lamp pole. I watch it all the time if I'm on 8th Avenue. And
directly across the street from
literally never see it flicker, and it's probably done that maybe 30 times on my tours.
Wow.
At a key, and always, by the way, here's an interesting coincidence if you're a skeptic, always at either the first mention of either Conchita's name or Jorge's name.
Wow.
So I find that very, very interesting.
Yes.
Now, how much time do we have? Do you want to move on?
Yes, so I think we probably should, because we've got about 20 minutes to go. We have a
Okay.
couple of other things that we need to take care of, but
Yes.
let's push on a little bit. Let's
Well,
go
the
down
other,
street.
and by the way, there's some great stories in Ybor City. There are some great buildings, and there are buildings that are not on my tour. I've had to bring this tour down to something that's manageable within a couple hours, and I have to really work to bring it into 2 hours.
You can't talk about the ghost tour without talking just a split second on the Gonzalez Clinic.
Yes.
Which is today the Don Vicente.
Yeah.
Because
But what I was going to say is
yes.
there are many buildings. Matter of fact, you had Dale Swope
Yes.
on your show,
Florida Brewery.
and the Florida Brewery building has a great ghost story in it. The Italian Club. On 7th Avenue, there is a
Tampa Theater?
Tampa Theater in downtown, of course. Well, there are other buildings, but in Ybor City specifically,
Does the Ritz have any
the
activity?
old Ybor Bank, Bernini's.
Yep. Broadway
There,
Bank?
yes, there
Bernini's?
is a sort of haggard an old hag who, a woman that has been seen on the 3rd floor. Some employees for Bernini's will not go up on the 3rd floor. Further down near where the customs office is today, there's a small store, Revolve, and that storefront, even before Revolve was there, has claimed that they have heard and seen a small boy. So there are these stories throughout Ybor City, but people are not going to walk around for 6 hours with me in Ybor City. So
we would, as long as we can take a break and get a snack.
yeah, right. Well,
Yeah.
that would be. I'm not sure, but that would be nice, I guess. But
Wait till the weather cools down a little bit.
yeah. But so really, we go through the Tres. We go to the Tres Clinic on our way. We do some talking on the way. We end up going to the original intersection that where Mr. Ybor builds his factory, his social club, the El Pasaje, and also his business building, which is the Manada building, which is eventually became the Ybor City Land Development and Management Company. And then it became the Bien Publico, and then it became the Gonzalez Medical Clinic. And for this, it becomes rather famous and in some subtle ways infamous. Right? Yeah. And so these are powerful places for paranormal people who are interested in the paranormal. Both of those buildings, the Don Vicente and the Cuban Club, which is right there, by the way, all those buildings have both been on television, in television shows for their hauntedness. So it's a powerful tour. We go into the Don Vicente, and we go down into the morgue, and we talk about what happened in the morgue and what it was like then, and we talk about some of the characters that haunt the Don Vicente today, and
The general being among the
general
most
being
fascinating.
one.
That was my favorite.
yeah, and he, the general Jose Luis Sabenal he's a fascinating in his own right, regardless of whether you accept the fact that he may have had his hands in some interesting things or not, or whether he is a ghost today or not. He's probably one of the most eccentric characters that has ever lived in Ybor City. For a multitude of reasons. The Avenal family was a founding, powerful family in Ybor City and Tampa, and his life story is just too good to not share it.
rich.
Yeah.
It is rich. His involvement with attempting to electrocute a chum of his in his homemade electric chair at the age of 14. By the way, the young man that he attempts to electrocute, I won't share his name here, but he's known in Tampa. He became a banker.
Really?
And
The plot thickens.
the plot thickens. Yes, some say that he became a banker because that day in the chair he lost his soul. No, just a joke.
And that is, ladies and gentlemen, that was a joke.
But yes, Jose Luis, fascinating guy.
Yeah.
No, and then right across the street is El Pasaje, which is where he was headquartered for a little while he was
Well,
doing
he lived in the El
lived in the upstairs of the
for 30 years. And I have to say that also in his life of these various acts that were
They were oddities, were they not? They were. They were oddities, eccentricities.
But he also was,
eccentricities and
he was
oddities.
even late in life, he was very responsible for preserving the El Pasaje. He loved the El
Really?
Pasaje, yes. So he performed these good things in the community. But he ran for Congress or Senate. State Senate. He was the only time ever arrested for running a diploma mill. In which it is. He wanted a printing press. No one in the 40s, 30s and 40s had a printing press. And he started printing his diplomas.
Wow.
And once he started to plaster his walls in the apartment above the El Pasaje with diplomas, his friends said, "Hey, I want one of them diplomas
Yeah,
too."
sure.
You know? And so he began to sell them to his friends.
Oh my gosh.
What's remarkable about that is on trial, it's in the record. This is what he said in testimony. He said, "I don't understand what the problem is. I'm only charging $50 for a diploma." He thought the issue was what he was charging.
Right.
He could not distinguish the ethical nature of that.
Sure.
They used to be pretty severe on people for diploma mills. You can imagine why.
Yeah.
But the reason he was printing those diplomas is because he had contacted the charter, the State Board of Education in the state of Florida, and told them that he was Dr. Avenal, that he had built a university in Ybor City. And essentially, they granted him a charter to a university called Southern University that didn't exist.
Amazing.
What a character.
So he was also obviously able to use his energy
Sure.
to affect people and
Right.
influence them. Charismatic. Young man, as a young man, handsome and charismatic, and he's an interesting
It
guy.
helps.
Yeah.
have to Google
Remarkably, we
Oh,
are
no.
at the 15-minute mark.
Have mercy.
Where did it go?
That
My esteemed colleagues.
No!
That 15-minute girl gets us every time. We're going to get to our bolita drawing in just a couple of minutes. Talk about the Cuban Club here in just a second or two. We'll ask Dory in maybe about 5 minutes to walk in the bolita sheet, whatever she might have there handy. Steve, do you have any questions there? Are there any questions that have come in?
No,
We want to
no.
make sure, because I hear the little beeping going off, the little sound.
We did get an email from Sonny Roberts.
Okay, Sonny's
And
watching. Hi, Sonny.
Hey, Sonny. And now he didn't give us a Bolita number, but and Sonny, if we still have some time to call in.
Call in,
977.
813-9
Yep, 6800.
Thank you.
But he did send a couple pictures of him with his Tampa Native shirt.
Oh,
So
that's good.
Little
We'll
too
show-
late.
We'll
Next
definitely
week.
show that
Yeah,
next week
absolutely.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely show that. Thank you, guys. Still have a few minutes left, so 813-977-6800, so you can get in on the bolita drawing. The Cuban Club.
Yes.
The Cuban Club. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry, Joe.
Well, before we go to the Cuban Club, let me just say, if you go to the Don Vicente,
305.
stay in room 305, renowned for its hauntedness.
305.
A nurse who worked in the hotel, Nurse Gaddy, is active in the hotel. And Ave Anal has been seen in the hotel. So the Don Vicente is probably one of the most beautiful historic renovations in Ybor City. Jack Shiver did an amazing job
He
there.
did.
And so, so I recommend you go to the Don Vicente. Now, on to the Cuban Club. The Cuban Club is, of course, an amazing, amazing place for many, many reasons, for many historical reasons. And we have talked about this before, the power of the mutual aid societies.
That's the Don Vicente. That's the Don Vicente
That's the
there.
Don Vicente.
Let me get him to Eric to pull up a quick picture of the Cuban Club so that we'll be on the right.
Probably number 8.
Yeah, 8 is fine. 8 is wonderful. In fact, stay with 8 for a second. Photo number 8, and then Joe, go ahead, and we got some orbs in the photograph as
Yes.
well. But go ahead, Joe, and tell us a little bit about the Cuban Club you were
Yes.
starting to say.
Well, what I was going to say is the Cuban Club, of course, was a mutual aid society building in which members paid a small amount. Of course, anybody in Tampa probably knows this, but paid a small amount, and for this they received in kind social services, and social services that included medical care. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we can't seem to figure it out today, but
They had it going on.
at the turn of the century. They
Isn't that
had
something?
They had health care, and by the way, they had very good health care. Now, that is interesting in and of itself. But let's go out a step further. Let's say that you are a Cuban, and I'm assuming that most of the Cubans living in Ybor City in the beginning were tried to be members of the club, I'm sure, and were. That's how you got your health care. It's how you connected with your people. You know that word ciclo cubano, the Cuban circle, the Cuban family. I think probably more than any other ethnic group was a little bit more tightly knit, and I say that with all due respect to my Sicilian and Italian and friends and
Spaniards.
and Spaniards and all the rest. But the Cubans had this certain tightness. And imagine, if you will, that you're a Cuban living in a house 5, 10, 15 blocks away. You don't have lighting in your neighborhood. It's black at night. You don't have electricity. You don't have running water. But you get to go into this fabulous building and be a member of this incredible place. I mean, it must have been for them, and it's hard for us to imagine in a society today overstimulated by all this stuff we have. These incredible, they had this building that they went into. In the ballroom was a mural on the ceiling of heaven. And so I say on the tour very often, this was their Facebook. This was their everything. Well, then let's go back to attachment. If you are someone, and there is some negative attachment in the Cuban Club, and there are some great, great ghost stories in the Cuban Club, but if you are in love with the place in that way, is it possible that you might remain just because you can't let go of that particular thing?
Sure,
I think it's possible.
Sure.
Because it was
their
sort of
whole life.
Yeah, it was their whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, the club building was very, very important to them. And so I think that there's a lot of, frankly, I think the energy in the Cuban Club is love. I have people who come here all the time from out of town, and they'll go through that experience on the tour, and they, particularly ones who are sensitive, who somehow connect to the quantum field in a way that maybe the rest of us don't. And they will say, you know, I felt good in there. I felt that there were presences around me. I felt that there were beings around me, and but I didn't feel anything icky or negative, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's probably a lot of love. What I think, in fact, is that they're probably there every night, having fun.
Having fun.
Having a great
party,
time,
dancing and singing.
We don't want to go over tonight, although it's very, very easy to do
right.
so. Eric, make sure you keep us on time. How much time remaining so that we... Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and call for the Bolita numbers now. Thank you, Dory. And darling, tell Joe real quick before we get to our drawing, and then I got a couple of announcements to make. What happened to us when we were doing our Yorktuck and Yorgi episode there, when we did our own very own Ghost Hunters tour of the Cuban Club. Remember what happened?
With the pennies?
Yes.
Yes, we were there doing a little filming when we were with TBCN, and I mean not TBCN.
TD.
Tampa Digital. And everywhere that I looked, down right in front of me, was a brand new copper penny. And it was odd. And I found 3 of them in different places. And the gentleman that was running it at that time told me that they don't keep any change in the building at all. So
no change in the building.
It was very odd.
But every time,
and it was odd that they were all new pennies every time.
Every time we turned on, and they were just right there on the floor in front of us. Just
Very interesting, because there was a pretty impressive story in the Cuban Club that has to do with coins.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Interesting.
We did mention Marilyn Messina too, Mark.
I never felt frightened, or I always felt welcome. And every time I've been in the building, that's how I feel. I love the Cuban Club.
Great building.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of history there.
One of the top 3 buildings in all of it.
But there is the woman in red who was stabbed to death in the courtyard.
The little boy who drowned
There's
also.
the small boy who drowns.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes to go. Why don't you go ahead, darling, open up that bag, whip it around. We've got just 1, 2, 3. We've got 4 numbers. So closest 2 without going over.
That's
You know
right.
how this goes, Stevie.
I know.
All right,
That's
there they
Am I
are.
pulling, or are you pulling?
Let Joe pull.
Okay.
Here we go.
The guess
Joe, get in there and pull you a number.
Give her a pull,
Closest 2,
Joe.
Stevie. You got 4 numbers. You can't mess this up.
No. 3,
All right.
7.
Don't let me go over on time, Eric. Thank you. And the number is 33.
33.
33. Okay, so this would be
Closest to?
12. This would be Angelina Testa.
Oh, that's
Leon.
great. Angelina Testa, first time
No,
winner.
she had 12.
First time winner,
Yeah.
Angelina. We'll make sure
There
to
you go.
reach out to us, Angelina. How can we get that
Congratulations.
shirt to you? And I'll show it to you real quick. It's our 50th anniversary. It's our 50-year commemorative shirt. For those Tampa native businesses that have been in business, we'd love to get that to you. So reach out to us. Good times at tampanativeshow.com. Let us know what size you need and where we can send it. Also, let me not forget a couple of things real quick. Yep, let's go ahead and do this one picture. Let's pick up picture number
0D.
0D. Oh boy. This is for Marilyn Messina. 0D is the picture. This is for
she is.
Marilyn Messina. There she is. Marilyn has got, we are trying to get Marilyn, that image right there, is that 0D? That's 0E. 0D is the one just before that. let me go ahead and tell you right quick that we've got this link up on our Facebook, Tampa Native Show Facebook page. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get them some votes, ladies and gentlemen, because if we get Joe and Sons Olive Oils enough votes, we can get them, they can win a commercial. How about this, on Super Bowl Sunday? And right now they've made it. They've jumped the first hurdle. They've made it to the second rung. So please look us up, tampanativeshow.com. When you see that link, click that link. It'll take you to that page.
Right
and you
there,
see right
vote
there where it
for
says,
us.
please vote.
That's on their page.
Vote for her as well. We want to
Right.
make sure we drive those numbers up. You can vote every day for the next 4 days. So Marilyn, we're going to be voting, and we hope you win. Also, let me mention, we've got a special contest. Pay attention, everybody. We've got 2 minutes left. Special contest for our Halloween show. That's October 31st on Thursday. 100 words or less. Are you listening? 100 words or less. We will judge, the 4 of us will judge the winner. 6 of you are going to be invited to sit in with us as our live studio audience on Halloween.
In your costume.
In your costumes. So if you don't plan on wearing a costume, don't bother to send your essay in. Tell us why you are the #1 fan of the Tampa Native Show and why you should be in studio with us in your costume.
And be creative
And
with
be
your
creative,
costume.
and the 4
That's
of
a
us
great
will
contest.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll win a T-shirt as well.
It's gonna be
so
fun.
not only will you be in studio with us on Halloween for our special Halloween show, but you'll win a T-shirt
cool.
as well. Joe, let's mention real quick on the 27th of October. Joe has made it possible for us, Tampa Natives, to go on tour with him on the 27th of October. It's a Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Special discount price of $22. Joe's going to take 20 of that, and he's going to donate 2 back to the show because he's a good guy. He's a great guy. So if you want to join us, please send your check. We'll have that event up on our Facebook page. Send your check to us. Only 30 people. Only 30 people, Stevie.
That's it.
So after 30, you get locked out. So be sure. That's going to be on our Tampa Natives event Facebook page.
And the website too. Got an email for Joe, real quick.
Okay, quickly.
This is Susan Kaufman.
How much time? 1 minute.
Yeah, Susan Kaufman writes, watching live online in New Jersey. How about that?
Oh,
wow.
Susan, thanks so
Yes.
much for
That's a new
watching
state.
in
Yep,
Jersey.
Yep. And she says, Joe's doing a magnificent job. One day I hope to be able to visit Tampa and experience the ghost tour. Susan Kaufman.
Oh,
Come on
Susan,
down,
thank you so
Susan.
much. That bell ring was from the 15-minute girl and just for you. You know, tonight we've had a great time.
Thank you, Susan.
The show just always flies when we have Joe in studio with us, and we promise to have him back. In fact, we're working on we're working on working Joe in to have his own special segment on the show. That's going to happen very, very soon. Listen, we've got the team assembled tonight in full force. We've got Eric Cupp sitting at the TriCaster. Becky Yataw is working our sound bus tonight. We can see Dory. She's on the phone for what reason, I'm not sure, but she's on the phone tonight answering your calls. This is
phone
Joe
rang.
Howden, the one, the only Joe Howden.
Thank
You
you,
know who
Joe.
that is there. That's Tampa Steve, and this is the 15-minute girl. Once again, Dan and Dia, congratulations on 10 years together. Let's do it together, guys. Salud,
Salud.
and happy
happy
days.
days.
We love you, Tampa.
Yes, we do.
See you next week.
Joe, thank you so much.
Back when we were younger and everything seemed new, we used to have a lot of fun, yes we did, no matter what we do. Sleepy days, long summer nights, going anywhere we please, with love that I could call my own, love that I've always known, the city that I call my home, a home from which I never roam. This love affair was meant to be. I love her and she loves me. I remember Tampa, oh, she remembers me. She remembers me. I remember, yeah, yes I do. Oh, I remember, yeah, me and you. I'm a Tampa native, Tampa native, can't you see? I will share my story with you to preserve its history.
All right now, don't forget, Thursdays, 7 p.m. on TBCN, home of the Tampa Native Show.